All right, so it is time to return to mesh modeling and finish talking about some of these tools that are present here in the toolbar. So if you are in a new Blender scene, all I have done here is deleted the camera and the light. We don't need them for this section of the course. So just on the default cube, we can come in here to edit mode, and we're gonna look at some of these tools on the toolbar. So the first thing I want to look at is the knife tool, which is this icon right down here, sort of the cube with the edges cut in the points in it. So we can access this tool either by clicking here where it says knife, or by pressing the hotkey K for knife. Either one of those will bring up the knife tool. Now you see we have this little knife icon with a little blue square under it. So this is just indicating where we want to make our cuts. So let's say I want to cut this edge with a new point, and I can do that just by, with the knife tool active, clicking. And now you can see that I have drug out this line with another point at the end of it. So in the past, we have made our cuts into our mesh with loop cuts, which always divide it in half and follow the Blender's edge loop rules, so to speak. But we can cut into our mesh in a more free-form way with the knife tool. So let's press K again on our keyboard. Let's start clicking on edges to make cuts. And now when we are done making our cuts, we can just hit enter on the keyboard to confirm that, and you can see that edges have been cut into this mesh. And we can, now treat these meshes in any way, or these faces, these edges, and these vertices, just as we do with any other. You could create something like that. You could, create something like that. And you can see that even though I didn't draw this point to an edge, it's still cut into this face and just created a vertex right in the center of this face. Now you may get some sort of errors and shading problems creating geometry like this, but you can do it. All right. The next tool I want to discuss is the Bisect tool, and the Bisect tool, if you hover over all of these, you probably won't see it. So what you need to do to access it is come down to the knife tool, click and hold, and drag the selection down to Bisect and release it. So now this toolbar slot has the Bisect tool in it. So we've talked a lot about cutting things in half with our loop cuts, but say we do not have a continuous edge loop in the direction that we want to cut. So the way we would approach a problem like that, say we wanted to cut this mesh, but I have now cut a triangle into it. So I can no longer use the loop cut tool to cleanly cut through the mesh. So the way we would tackle this problem is to use the Bisect tool. So with the Bisect tool enabled, let's make a selection on our mesh. I'm just going to press A for everything, or all. And now we can click and drag, and you'll see this line form out. And this is just previewing where we want to make our cut, what rotation we want to make it at. So let's say we want to make it like this. Now this cut has been made into the mesh, but before we perform any other operations, we have a couple options if we need to adjust it. If we need to slide it, we can drag the arrows. And if we need to rotate it, we can drag on the circle. This one's, there we go. So, and you'll see when you slide this Bisect tool preview, it is not being prevented, it's not being hindered in any way by the existing geometry. So even though we have a point here, if we were trying to loop cut and slide that and we slid it down to this point, it would not be able to go past this point. But with the bisect tool, we can place this cut anywhere we need it. When we're ready, we can just click off of it, and going into vertex select mode, we can see that these points are here and can be manipulated just as any point. Now I will say that when you select tools from the toolbar rather than using their shortcut, you will have to manually return to select mode up here in order to properly select these points to edit them. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that you may get, I'm getting these errors here, but that's because I am still in bisect mode and I have nothing selected. Now, the bisect tool does require you to make a selection to work, and it will only create a cut through your selection. So I selected everything last time, so it completely bisected my entire mesh. But if I select these faces and use the tool, you'll see that it has not continued this cut through the unselected faces. Okay, so the next tool that I want to cover is the Knife Project tool. And for this, let's get a clean cube here. And let's tab into edit mode. Now you won't see the Knife Project button here. It's sort of hidden in a deeper menu, but I think it is such a useful tool that I want to make sure that I cover it. So what the Knife Project does is it takes the open edges of one object and it uses them to make cuts into another object. So what I mean by an open edge is this cube and any of the most of these primitives are all what we call manifold objects, which means that every edge in this object is connected to another face. There are no sort of open edges. So a plane is a non-manifold object because the edges on this side, this edge is connected to a face here, but it is not connected to a face here, and none of them are around. So this creates an open edge, or a wire edge, as it's sometimes also known. So Knife Project only works from an object that has a wire edge. So just keep that in mind. So let's look at what it actually does. So I'm gonna scale this up just a little, and we're gonna cut into this mesh based on the shape of something else. And the shape that we're gonna use is actually a text object. Text objects are sort of a hybrid object type in Blender. I'm just moving it up above so we can see it. If I tab into edit mode on the text, I can actually edit what it says. But if I view it in wireframe, we can see where these edges and faces are going to be drawn. So it's not really a mesh in and of itself, but it is easily created into a mesh, and Blender views the edges of these letters as open wire edges, so we can use it with the Knife Project. So let's position this text object directly above our cube. So the selection order for Knife Project is pretty important. So we need to select our cube. We need to tab into edit mode. Then we need to control and click on this text object to select it. What we then need to do is let's press 7 to come into top orthographic view. And we're going up to this top menu bar. We're going to press mesh, and then we're going to come down to where it says knife project and click that. So let's look at what it just did. It has cut points and edges and drawn faces directly into the face of this cube. So what can we do with this now? Well, let's unhighlight some of these central cuts, and now we could extrude it, for example. And now we have this text cut into our cube. Now, knife project is dependent on view angle, so this cut cleanly into the top because I was looking at it from the top orthographic perspective. If I move this text around, let's say to something like this, and I ran the knife project on it by lining it up in my viewport, coming into the cube, tabbing into edit mode. Now I need to control click this, and I sometimes find that it doesn't work when you have too many objects behind it. So if you are control clicking and it's not selecting this correctly, just skew it so that there's nothing behind this object, control click it, and then line it up. So let's line it up in our viewport. We have all this ready to go. Let's go to mesh, knife project, and you'll see it has cut in at that angle, but it is skewed because of the perspective, and it was when it was cut and the angle of our viewport. Now we can fix some of this like intense stretching. By coming into orthographic view before we do this. So this is just showing you another way of how the viewpoint in your 3D perspective is really important for this tool. So if I press 5 on my numpad and come into orthographic view, and we've now flattened this cube out. So now let's tab into edit mode. Let's control select this object, line it back up, mesh, knife project. Okay, now let's come back into perspective by pressing 5. And now you can see that this is much less distorted when I've done that in orthographic view. It works, knife project works with more than just text. You can also use mesh objects. Again, they just have to have a wire edge. So you could set 3. Let's add mesh. Let's add a circle, which will add a flat circle with, I believe, no faces in it, and it will be a non-manifold object. In the Add Circle Initialization menu, let's change this number of vertices to 6. This will make it a hexagon, and if you're wondering where it has just been added inside of our cube. So let's just move it out. So if I come into orthographic view, or rather first tab into edit mode, control, click on this hexagon, 3 to be in right orthographic, mesh, knife project, and you can see now we have this hexagon cut perfectly into the side of our mesh. All right, so I spent sort of a long time on the knife project, but I do think it is a really powerful tool, and it's definitely a good one to know. So I'm going to wrap up the video here for now. We've gone over cutting with knife, which we can do by pressing K and clicking. We went over how to bisect across the selection with the Bisect tool, and we went over how to use the knife project tool. So in the next video, we're going to continue on with more of these tools for mesh editing.